So I always start with backing the horse before any movement. And then for hand yielding is really important. Getting them to respect your space and yield different parts of their body is huge. Forehand is usually harder. So I start and end with backing on that. Here I'm looking to ask her to lower her pole before I back her so that she can start to learn appropriate body balance. And again, lowering the pole, just taking the time in that ask, because putting their pole down is a huge benefit to them mentally and emotionally, especially in a learning environment. So I really try to make a big deal out of getting their pole down. Here is a hind quarter yield. This particular young mare got pretty stuck in her hind legs, so hind quarter yields were a pretty big deal that she needed to learn. And here we're spending a lot of time with backing with her because she does have a little bit of a pushiness to her. Again, forehand yields are very important. Anything done on her right side was pretty tight and quick. It got progressively better, but this is one of her first days. So I spent a little bit of time rubbing on this side a little bit more to try and get a little bit more confidence. Again, hind quarter yields without pushing the shoulder into me. It's a big deal. So a little bit of desensitization. I don't like to overdo this because I do feel like that you can make them too dull, but you do want to help them understand that they can be accepting and they don't have to overreact to certain stimulus. Again, her right side was a lot harder for her to understand this on. So we ended up spending a lot more time with the right side. I ended up letting her do a lot more walking out off of the right side just because I felt like sometimes the quickness and the tightness actually came from a little claustrophobia. Later on in the work, I did start having a little higher expectation for her to be able to stand still and accept the stimulus.
Yeah.
So here's the first play with running over the mounting block. And it's a big deal, you just are getting seen in a different way. I try to just do a bunch of silly things, get them used to seeing me out of different zones of their body. I like to see if I can ask the horse to position themselves to be ready to accept me on their back. And again, there's just a lot of confidence building, really nice and slow, and kind of like matching whatever energy they give you. So here I'm starting to jump off and put a little weight on her. And sometimes that can get a little tense and tight just because you're pushing on their confidence level a little bit. So just being accepting of all of that is really important. She needed some time with just being able to have me change the intensity, and so like jumping around kind of a big deal. Just traveling with her, being able to kind of keep the conversation going, but then always bringing her back to where we originally started talking about things. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of up and down, a lot of jumping. The right side definitely posed a bigger challenge with this one, just because she would position herself so much farther away. So I ended up using the rope a lot to help me kind of mimic what I was able to do on the left side by throwing it over her back. I did actually ask her to walk on this side and try to get her to accept the different stimulus with her walking, because I felt like a lot of it, again, is a little bit of claustrophobia. And just allowing that door to be open and letting her walk it out really seemed to kind of change her perception of what was happening. So we spent a lot of time with this. And, it's okay to do things smaller, but just not to avoid the conversation. So obviously on this right side, it took me a lot more time to get to this point right here, where I'm actually jumping towards her, and she still is not crazy about it. So just continuing it. Just because she doesn't accept it now doesn't mean that I can't start the conversation. So I know that she's having a hard time accepting it, but I just try and keep the intensity the same. I try to match her energy a little bit. And I thought that one was a little bit better. So, different day, obviously, different color pants. I think this day I spent most of my time on her right side. Just because I got the feeling that I really needed a concentrated effort on this right side. And when they do try to scoot away from you, I try really hard to stay with the wither and keep my feet moving along with theirs. And then I try to position her right here, where she kind of has to bend a little bit, has to release the pole a little bit. All of that same kind of process where she is able to put herself in a more accepting body position. Because she just is pretty convinced that she wants to block me through this right side, or block me from getting to the right side. So that was better. It's still a little defensive reaction. If you saw how he kind of quivered and would have jumped away. Definitely better. And of course, as with all horses, it comes and goes. So you kind of have to re-establish the position where she's wanting to participate with me. Because she just really doesn't want to. So, that's kind of where I just try to hang with them and be as understanding as possible, but still ask them to really concentrate on what I'm trying to accomplish with them. So that one was a lot better. And here we go. We are getting somewhere. And so I just try to be really nice and accepting with my body. And again, like you can kind of see where like she still kind of wants to go away. So again, I try and put a little pressure on the wither, try to like help her move in a direction a little bit towards me. And see here, I let her walk away. It did not freak me out that she walked off in the mounting block. And this was a huge moment for her, like being able to move underneath me. This day, I think, did more for her than a lot of what else I did. Just because she learned that that was acceptable, that I could be on her and she could like rebalance herself, like those 2 steps. And she could really think about what was happening without simply reacting to it. And I think reacting to things like that is such a ingrained tendency for a lot of mares anyway. But Tutu especially, just she kind of is a little interesting in how her back conformation is, and pretty tight in her loin and lumbar area. So being able to bring awareness to that and help her with acceptance, really big thing. So obviously the left side, so much better. Really like cool about it. But when you ride, you end up being on both sides of the horse a little bit because of your legs. So here I was just rubbing my leg on top of her bum a little bit, as I like to start moving around and swinging my legs back and forth before I start going up and over, just because that's a good way to get them used to, like, my legs can move, I can move, and you are perfectly fine. So, and up and over. And I was really excited about that for her, because it's a big deal, really big deal, to be able to see me out of the left eye and then see me out of the right eye. So nice little sit down with her. So here we are. I didn't have a camera person on this day, but here we are with working on being able to sit. We spent quite a few days up and over, up and over, up and over, and gaining that acceptance. And now we're on her back, on both sides of her body. And I'm going to ask her to try and move underneath me. And honestly, with these baby horses, the weight shift is sometimes all that they can really answer you with, and you have to be okay with that. And a lot of times their first steps are actually going to be backwards, because they just don't understand that they can walk out in front of you a little bit. And this mare is a little interesting, how she kind of would get stuck with her hind leg out behind her, and she'd actually stretch out with her front feet. But I had to accept whatever movement she gave me with those front feet, because that was in a positive direction. And that's really all that you're asking for at the start of things. So I was super happy with all of these attempts, but I think it just boils down to staying as balanced as you possibly can while you're on them so that you can help her understand that you are with her and not causing any more discomfort to her. So, thanks for watching.